All right, here we are, the Gloucester Economic Development and Industrial Corporation. Calling to order the meeting for the month of April here. At the moment, attendance, we've got Taylor Hedges, Tom Bell, Gretel Seeley, and Patty Nags.
Here.
First order of business, or I guess I need to say, the public is welcome to attend this meeting in person. Zoom link to access the meeting remotely is available and is available on the city's website. In the event that the in-person meeting, in the event of a problem with the hybrid, the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated. Unless there in fact is a quorum issue. And so with that, we'll get going. So first order of business, the March 2025 meeting minutes. Hope everybody had a chance to look at, make sure we spelled everybody's name correctly. Any issues? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Taylor, a second?
Second.
Gretel, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
A is fine. B is fine.
Aye.
Any vowel you want to use, Patty.
Thank you. Thank you.
Organizational issues, none. I do know that if this would count as an organizational issue, the city is working on the budget. There is, and I don't know exactly what it's calling for, but there, will be an economic development position within the budget, which is good news. But there was also last year, not a person as senior as Sal was, and it's good that it's in the budget. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna ever get money needed to make it happen, but we'd rather have it in the budget for sure.
Right, I mean, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Most of the meeting today will generally be about familiar issues. Status report of current initiatives. So following up on the Blackburn Park meeting, there was a couple of things that we said we would look at. One of them being landscaping. And Taylor, if you want to talk about where we're at on that.
Three of them. I have three quotes. So Hilltop, who does some stuff at Fondlin Road, came in monthly at $480, bi-weekly at $350. JPL is bi-weekly at $300. And our villa is monthly at $1250. So I don't know that we want to make a decision.
Our villa is $1250
for monthly. That's who's been doing it for Jay. That was like a Jay McMifka.
So we're really probably talking Hilltop or JPL, right?
Do we just want to throw that out to them to make a decision, or I don't know. Is it our decision?
What were the fees again?
Hilltop was monthly $480, bi-weekly $350. JPL was bi-weekly $300. Our villa was monthly $1250.
So do you have a sense, either from Jay or Mike Hale, as to whether it's better, whether you need to do it bi-weekly or monthly is adequate?
So our villa did it monthly before, so I think that's probably adequate. I mean, I think it's going to depend on the weather. So if you have a rainy like spring, you might need to hit it a little bit sooner. But then if you want things dry out in like July and August and stuff's pushed back, you probably don't need to go up there again. So it might be more of a play it by ear. You don't want to get it. That's the other thing. If it gets too far away, you can't just go in and weed eat. You got to go in there with something bigger to take little shrubs down and stuff. So I don't think weekly is necessary though.
Right. So the JPL would be $600 a month versus Hilltop at $480 per month.
Well, he'd go once a month. I don't know, JPL didn't give me a price on monthly. I can go back.
Right, but I
I'll
mean,
get-
assuming that he would, so it would be 600, I'm assuming that
Oh.
no discount,
Right.
right? That it's just,
Right, but Hilltop monthly is just going once a month.
right,
So, yeah,
right.
so,
Oh, it's just
So-
once a month,
right, so
Right.
that's why it's more. You're going once, but the assumption
Right,
is there's gonna be
right.
more to do.
right?
So I'll get a monthly price from JPL.
Patty, do you have any senses, do you have any sort of commercial properties and sort of doing it once a month versus, this is more sort of weed whacking, brush cutting than sort of lawn
It's
mowing.
the
per
side
se.
of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like.
I think once a month is the least you can get away with, and in that situation, I think it might work. I have personal experience with Hilltop, super reliable. I've always found their prices super fair.
Alright. We'll stick with those two.
So, and assuming that, so let's say it was once a month. And we think it's a 6-month season,
Yeah.
Yes,
so we're talking $2,500 or something like that, so I
Yeah.
mean, it's,
We'll go round.
and then maybe put in something else for either once a year, or maybe it's every 2 years where you have to come in and do something
Right, some more.
bigger equipment, so maybe it's
Right.
another $1,000 or something.
Right,
I mean, this certainly seems like it's, to ask people to.
yeah,
throw in-
and if you
and-
have to do a larger job, like every year maybe, or 2 years or whatever, they can do that during the off season, so you can get a little bit of a discount rate that way.
Right,
right. Yeah, you could do it before everything ramps up or right when things slow down if you're doing some tree work.
okay, well, let's just plan on sort of making a decision
Okay,
next month
okay. And getting a list of people
and getting a
that
list,
we're
and
gonna
then,
ask for money.
I mean, and maybe. So can we agree now? So if we were to say a $5,000 annual budget. Is that,
You said 35, I mean, basically your math was 3,500.
Right, no, I know.
Rounding up again.
yeah, but you definitely don't wanna
You don't wanna undershoot it. right?
undershoot it. I mean, I also, as I'm talking, remember that Mike Hale was talking about, $20,000 should be
Yeah,
enough.
Right, right,
So,
right. Well, let's do that. Let's go with a bigger number and then we'll keep a separate account. I just haven't
Right.
closed that TD bank account, so I could just keep that money completely separate.
Okay,
And keep that in an account that's gonna be used for this. And we're fine, I know Adrian's not here, but I think we're fine to do this work, right? Collect this money, do the work, we've done it before.
yeah,
Okay.
But, well, and actually, I would budget 7 months.
Okay, well, then I think we're good with doing the 5,000, right? That will give us a really big buffer. And if we get a call money, we can say, hey, we don't need any money for a little while, we're good. I mean, it's better to get ahead of it. I mean, I listen to people talk about HOAs and assessments and this and that. I'm like, it sounds like it's mismanaged. If you're doing an assessment every 6 months, you should be getting more HOA fees, so.
I mean, and I can't imagine that we'd have any problem. I mean, obviously, we'd like sort of equitable. The larger companies to contribute, but I don't think it's gonna be any problem to get $5,000.
I shouldn't think so.
So when we did the signage,
They paid per sign.
so wasn't there some extra though? Didn't we have sort of the same thing? We built in something that
We-
said if we need to go back and.
I think I'd have to really look at the numbers. It got really close because then a couple people pulled out right at the end. So I had it kind of budgeted where this was gonna be break even and then someone pulled out at the end. So then we were maybe below break even, then someone jumped in. And I think Beauport was gonna jump in, so that would have really kind of finally put us over, but then they never did.
Yeah.
So,
And so we never had a sort of a separate account for that.
no, we just
Okay.
did the work because we had also agreed on contributing if needed. We agreed that we would be a contributor if needed. so-
Right.
And we didn't really need to.
So, any sense, or do you wanna sort of come back at next meeting to say what should we ask? I mean, I think
Well,
that,
let's look at who we're gonna ask and
I
then come
mean-
up with that number.
I mean, so it's the biggest are J, McNiff Company and Applied Materials. From a square footage
Right.
and even an employee standpoint, that probably might be 75%.
Right.
And
I'm just gonna grab my contact list.
so anyway, well, let's not think out loud here, but let's not overthink it either.
Yeah, but you got that whole Blackburn, the primary care, that one Cape Ann, the
Right.
one, the medical park.
Happy Valley.
Yeah, Happy Valley.
Right, Happy Valley, Cometeer.
Yeah, I think you have plenty of pockets. I mean, I
What do
think
you do?
that-
Just send an invoice or do you having to call all these people?
No, I think we'd send them out and ask them. I mean, the way it worked in Conlin Road is we asked everyone for money and only certain people ever contributed.
Okay.
And we just accepted it as
Right.
a fact of life that some people just aren't gonna contribute.
Right.
So. But it was important enough to everyone else to just say, hey, I'm not gonna chase these people around. So that would be, I think we shoot over. You know, if we have, say we have 10 people, we ask for, $600 to $700, assuming we have 80% people volunteering. NOAA, probably won't get money from NOAA. Cause they'd have to work in a new budget, they'd have to run it up the flagpole, but Anchor Seal.
They'd have to call Elon.
That has to be ordered.
Chainsaw.
Well, let's look at your list and our list and
Yeah,
just come up.
but I mean, I think
with who we're gonna
there's
ask.
10,
'Cause
there's 10 organizations up
Yeah,
there that.
But I've got like 65 contacts up there for some reason. We have this huge list of people that are up there.
Right.
So, they all might, or they might not. I mean, it should be the landowners, but sometimes the tenants are big enough that they want to contribute.
Right,
So,
okay. Great, I think that's very doable.
Yeah.
Um,
and they know it's coming. I mean, no one balked at that meeting when I said, hey, McNiff's been doing this for years. It's time for you guys to own up.
right,
So,
right, this would be a discount for Jay.
oh, yeah. Well, it looks like he was paying, I mean, if he was paying his guy this rate, he was paying $6,000 a year to get it done versus how he can throw in $500.
So on the other things that are mentioned here on recycling, remember there was the question from somebody about, could there be recycling? I haven't done much on that, but I did talk to Jay today, so so it generally applies to, I think, Jay's tenants, right? Either Cometeer or Happy Valley. I assume they do at least cardboard recycling or some element of recycling, but I don't know, but I can check with them. But the question, I can check with them, one, to know who they use and is it a productive relationship? And two, would they be interested? I mean, I hesitate to get into the business of us trying to sort of procure a better deal with Republic or Hiltz or whoever's doing recycling, because it just tends to be problems, right? So
Right.
even if we could negotiate a better price, slightly better price, I don't want anything to do with being the person that people call.
No.
So,
Wow.
Jay's willing to sort of try it again, but he's had multiple challenges over the years of recycling, and whether it's contamination and having to go in there, or other people using, his recycling dumps, you
Right.
name it, it's
Oh,
always been,
everything's always.
let alone sort of the recycling management.
Right.
Yeah,
It doesn't take much to screw up like an entire cardboard dumpster with like
Right.
a little bit of something else and it's like junk.
So I'll follow up, but we haven't really made any real progress on that. On the food service side, I did have, thanks to Applied Materials, a very good conversation with the Compass Group, who's a major food service provider, and who had just signed a large contract with Applied for their dining facility. So, they're definitely interested. The sort of conversation went, they're really talking more about catering events, right? Or a one-day thing that a company might have its
Yeah.
10th anniversary and those sorts of things. And so then we got around to, no, I was really more interested in a ongoing daily, or at least Monday through Friday, food service. So what we talked about was they have a software application. I think Applied has 14 buildings, or is in 14 buildings up there. So not only is there the dining hall, but you can also order online from a slimmer menu. You order by 10 o'clock and they will, they make deliveries of some basic food items, but also coffee, tea, chips and other things for conference rooms. So one possibility would be is to open that up as a subset anyways to Comitier and McNiff Company tenants and other folks. And so what I said is, let me go out and see if there really is expressed interest in that. And if there is, then if they could either find a case study, something similar they've used at some other industrial park that's like that, or go back to their IT group who could sort of mock something up and say, here's how it might look and work. And then you'd put in an order and they would then deliver whatever has been ordered at Comitier to some agreed upon area. And it can't be every little business, right? They'd have to sort of negotiate or figure that out.
Right.
So I need to reach out. So I talked to Jay McNiff about it. He thought it sounded fantastic. So I'll talk, I know Comitier is on board, so I'd like to talk to Happy Valley. I'll talk to Noah, and Intershell, and maybe the schools.
Yep.
But anyway, sort of the same thing that we talked about, the major folks, and see if there was interest, and if there does seem to be. So we think roughly there's like 1,200 Applied Materials employees up there. There's probably somewhere between 800 and 1,000 other employees at the park.
Right.
So if those major tenants said that would be.
Yeah, did Applied say how many folks use that cafeteria on a daily basis? The one they have?
They didn't, but nor did I
That's
ask.
a huge number. I mean, that's a huge number of people buying food in Gloucester every
Right.
day.
Watch every
I would
day.
wonder too about local, do any of the food truck licenses apply to the ones in the city?
We were just, I don't think anybody's up there right now.
No, there is not a spot up there.
Yeah,
'Cause I tried to find that out also.
I think a fair number of people, drive across
Yeah,
128 and go to Market Basket and get a sandwich or
Right.
processed food and.
What's the process to getting a spot up there though? Like how would you?
I don't know the answer, but I'd be happy to find out, because it doesn't seem like it would infringe on any other trucks necessarily.
There's no one up there.
no,
So.
it's,
Yeah,
there's
if you
some
could,
great
if you
ones
could
around
find out,
town too,
that would be great. I mean, I think part of the issue that when we're at the Blackbird meeting that was talked about is, the truck works well for, again, like 6 months, 7 months of the season, but
Right.
Yeah.
not
Almost
so
line
great
up in
for,
January, February, March.
a typical winter day like April 8th in Gloucester. So anyways, it seems like there's some options and we'll figure out, I'll reach out further. And hopefully by next meeting, I will have gotten enough feedback and then reach back out to Compass Group and see. And then if you can report back on what it would take to get a food truck up there, Patty, that would be great for next meeting.
I'll check into the licensing part.
Yep, great. So that's it, and then you know, we know Applied Materials is sort of expanding up there. Who knows what,
Yeah.
whether any of their plans are paused or, you know, as the market changes here, the world changes, but as far as we know, I mean, I think the only company that's
I'm joining you.
in real risk is NOAA.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that, you know, they're gonna look anywhere near like they look 200 employees,
Right.
you know, when their contract expires, so. And I haven't heard anything back about from Great Republic, 58 Great Republic about the empty site, so.
Yeah, I don't know. You thought they'd be a little more proactive, but it's,
Who knows what?
maybe there's more stuff going on behind the scenes that.
Is there a place up there that's kind of communities, outdoor space at Blackburn? I'm hardly ever up there, but where a food truck, picnic tables, cornhole, like, could you? There's nowhere.
There
like that.
isn't one. I mean, we could look around and see if anyone, you know, it's gonna be on someone's property. We
Right.
can see if it's.
Yeah.
If there's a spot that anyone would.
Well, I was even thinking at one point, just, you know, this outstanding question of, you know, we need to figure out how to generate revenue. You know, we own, EDIC owns a couple of different spots, one of which is on that sort of general entrance area.
Yeah.
You know, is there an area that could be cleared and you put in a little Triumph trailer? And, you know, people could pick up their food, sandwiches or something or other there. But I didn't, it quickly seemed like a stupid idea. Not worth the $500 in net revenue that you get.
It does seem like there's an opportunity to make the whole thing better, or there were some people at that meeting very interested in a bigger community
Right,
feel up there.
Yeah.
But it's just how, you know, how would you ever, is it worth doing and how would you do it? you
Right.
know, Without some community space.
yeah. I mean, and as Jay said, I mean, there used to be, so I don't recall how long you've lived here, but there used to be a restaurant out there.
Yeah,
Do you remember, that was, people liked it.
I remember, it was, she might be working out of the kitchen that is below the Masons. She was it was a good kitchen, good cafeteria.
Right, it was good
it was,
food.
Yeah, and
versus
it's a good business too, because you only have to do basically like morning and lunch and like,
Well, yeah, Classic Cooks was up there. There was a caterer.
yes.
That was it, but that-
Julie
Just-
something, her name is.
Theory.
Uh,
There was
Julie
there was a restaurant.
Then someone took over and started to run a restaurant up there too, and it had to be just kind of a breakfast lunch joint.
Yeah,
Just
oh,
hoping
yeah.
to get that group of people, and I think as long as you. Show up and produce a decent variety, I mean, you kind of need variety in this day and age too, it can't be just burgers or something, so, I mean, I think it's possible, it's just finding the right person.
So next on the agenda is the energy initiative next steps. So I've talked about this before. It's too bad Jerry's not here because I want to wrap him into this project. So and Lee sent around a little link to take a look at. So
That was that new site.
yeah, so Manchester we had a kickoff meeting and the steering committee per se is City of Manchester, including their sort of city engineer. And there was a position like Director of Land Management. And their town administrator. And then myself and Bailey McCall, who's the sustainability coordinator in Gloucester and has been doing, and as part of her job description is energy efficiency and energy work. So we had a meeting with MAPC who will be doing the work. And I think one of the couple of good things that came out of this kickoff meeting was, I think MAPC was thinking that they'd use these, that it would be more integrated with the work that we've done with Daymark, looking at capacity and forecasting when in fact these NRail tools, and if you come up with a link and you can see some of the infographics, it's really mostly about decarbonization. Right? What's the current information for Essex County? And what's the CO2 generated and how much energy is used and what percentage might be distributed generation or renewable. And then you can do some scenario planning around that. So an issue for us is the fact that we're not looking at Essex County, we're really looking at Greater Cape Ann. And they can sort of normalize that based on demographics and census data compared to the entire area, as well as sort of some economic data that would be specific to Greater Cape Ann compared to all of Essex County. And then, but the other issue is that really this is one more data point or tool set in our portfolio that says, okay, we've looked at capacity quality, we've looked at forecasting, and we think you're under, forecasting National Grid. You've got this forecast for what you think is going to be the use of renewable energy or more electricity and decarbonization. Well, we've done this analysis with this tool that says, no, you're low or you're high or whatever, but all of that. And so the benefit of this meeting was the recognition that we're not trying to necessarily work from the Daymark Energy. This is another useful group of information and useful stakeholders to try to set us up for the future with an adequate electrical distribution system that meets our economic development needs, our environmental needs, et cetera. And the other thing, but I do think it's important to get Jerry involved here, is that we're just gonna have that steering committee, and I'll try to get Jerry in as well, rather than open it up to a much broader consortium of stakeholders to advise on the methodology. Let's just let MAPC begin and do their analysis. And then based on that, we'll try to build this consortium of municipal leaders and Senate and House Representative and NGOs and Chamber of Commerce, et cetera, to interact with not only National Grid, but the Department of Public Utilities and ISO New England to raise our hand and say, right, here's what we need going forward. So, as I said, I think it's great. There's no money on our part. It keeps the momentum and keeps our work relevant and moving forward. And MAPC likes it also because remember there's I forget what the acronym is, but there's the GMAC, there's an advisory committee that advised sort of DPU in the approval of National Grid's plans and Eversource's plans. And they're sort of, rolling their fingers trying to figure out what do they do next. And I think this is a way to utilize an analytical tool, engage in a stakeholder process. So it allows us to not only just use MAPC, but to integrate more effectively with this Greater Metropolitan Advisory Council and get some notice there as well. So, I think it's all good without any real expenditure of money as ever, it's time and effort. So,
right.
So I think it should be good. So hopefully next meeting, we hope to kick this off. And so hopefully by next meeting, I might have some preliminary data to share with this group, and we'll certainly have to do some work on building out the consortium, a lot of which we had done before in terms of framework. Just remember identifying who should be in a consortium.
Right.
And I think our goals are pretty clear, but put together what's our outreach plan for building this consortium. Condon Road feasibility, Adrian and I met with Suzanne Egan, the legal counsel for the city. Talked about what we were seeking is guidance from Suzanne on, you know, where do you say, you know, enough is enough?
Right,
Right, because again, we don't, so we thought we had reached, I mean, it was really something that Suzanne had suggested, even though she didn't know the answer to it. But to suggest, would the city consider doing a tax taking, because nobody's paid taxes on this property forever. So it turns out that there was a ruling within the last year in Massachusetts that the city cannot. And the reason to do that in part is to simply then go through the process, which includes public notification and or meeting, and to see if anybody steps out from the, you know, the soil off Condelin Road and says, oh, my great grandmother owns that property, I never realized that. So it was just a way to cost effectively test
right.
whether there's anybody out there, but apparently we've been, apparently it won't work.
So Mass just prohibits that now?
I think there's been a ruling, and I think there's been multiple rulings where municipalities are really gun shy to claim a property.
Right.
For fear that then somebody comes back and says, no, you know, that's mine, or
Yeah,
you can't just take it. And I mean, and we do, the EDIC, we looked through the statute when we were meeting with Suzanne, does have the ability to pursue eminent domain. But again, it's, you're gonna spend time and money
right,
to go through that process. So she had, Suzanne had mentioned that the Open Space Committee, which is headed up by a friend, Dan Morris, who's like Gloucester as well, has been looking at some properties as part of open, and the same sort of issues. So I was talking to Dan, and he said that actually Essex County Greenbelt, and he mentioned some names, has been great. I mean, they work with a number of different municipalities and have traveled these roads before, so to speak. And then, you know, maybe address the issues in different ways, depending on the municipality, from eminent domain to an auction. And so his advice was to talk to them and find out, you know, what are the tools available, and what have they done and what have they learned. So either I'll meet with them, or I may see if they could come to one of our future meetings and just share with us, you know, how they've gone about it in different situations. So
that would be interesting to learn about, that would be
Well,
great if they'd be willing to do that.
yeah, yeah, no, I agree. So so I think that's our next step. Last on the sort of updated initiatives is Jodrey State Fish Pier. You know, I've reported, Rob's reported in the past that we've had sort of challenging conversations with Mass Development. I had a conversation with Gary Walker, their senior VP of real estate, and the woman who was recommended in New Bedford, who's helped New Bedford on a number of Mass Development supported projects. And I think we had a very productive call. I mean, it was, you know, the way we framed it is certainly collaborative. We're trying to, you know, look at this property, this 8-acre property, and come up with a plan and a vision for what it could be 10 years from now. And we know it needs investment. We, you know, fear it's underutilized or could be underutilized. And you had told us, you know, you should talk to New Bedford and you should do this. And we've done all these steps. And, you know, here we are. So I would describe it as a good collegial conversation. I was hoping to meet with him later on this month, but I think it's going to be pushed back to May. They suggested we look at Mass Development programs called the one stop program and has to do with site readiness. As maybe using that mass development program as a way to get some initial conversations going about what the property could be. So it turns out that City of Gloucester, and those will be due, the open period for applications is between May 1st and June 5th, I think. The City of Gloucester has already applied to those programs and identified 5 different projects that they would like to do. And you can apply early and get feedback and tailor your final ask accordingly. So I've spoken to Alex Koppelman, and I think what we've agreed is they are seeking money for I4C2. And the idea here, I'll read the language. So they had gotten some money to look at the soil issues and the structural issues around what could be done there. And that has been sort of, they have that information now. So the next step is, and I'll read the project abstract. Gloucester acquired the 2-acre 65 Rogers Street site in 2010 for community-driven redevelopment aligned with designated port goals. Now a municipal marina and parking lot with a harbor walk. Recent mass development studies confirm its redevelopment potential. The study seeks grant funding for community visioning and an RFP process to activate the site, ensuring a redevelopment plan that strengthens downtown's connection to the working waterfront and defines a key area of the city. So pretty generic at this point. So we talked about whether we could combine that ask for site visioning money with the state fish pier. And we sort of reached the, I would say, consensus opinion that depending on the feedback here, we rewrite it slightly, but in a way that's a phase 1 and phase 2. So keep this project focused on I4C2, but identify that this visioning process can also inform the Jodrey State Fish Pier site, and that would be a phase 2 follow-up. So trying not to dilute this project, but leverage what is learned here to hopefully make a more efficient visioning process going forward. So, so I think that's good news. And I was certainly very pleased to have a collaborative. I mean, I did get the feeling that they very much want to, put together a long-term vision and plan for.
And right now, that's occupied by a tenant, fully occupied by a tenant paying rent to.
Correct.
State.
They're at least the major tenant called NAPS, North Atlantic Pacific, or North Atlantic partner, NAPS is on a.
I want to name my company.
It's a solid company headed by some folks that have been in this business for 25 years. I really like them. They know their stuff. Have big plans. It's a 6-month lease. It's been challenging.
So they renew it every 6 months? Is that how they?
Well, they've just.
Or they just moved it?
He was involved and he was employed with Cape Seafood. When Cape Seafood left, then he took over the space. And took over, I mean, it was already sort of doing some of the business, but very astute businessman on the frozen seafood. So part of the challenge and part of the tension, and I don't think I'm talking out of turn here, is that the refrigeration freezer system is woefully outdated. We've talked about that. It needs probably a minimum of $10 million investment. And the question is who, right? And so mass development sort of points the finger at the previous tenant that should have been keeping up the equipment. they
Yeah, but data,
Point
data
at-
is dated, you can't keep up.
they
antiquated equipment.
pointed, and the current tenant says, well, it shouldn't be my problem, or at least fundamentally my problem, so.
Who owns all that refrigeration? Mass Development, did the previous tenant just put it in and leave it behind?
No, I believe that mass development,
You
there
think
was
so? So
part
it's
of,
part of
it
the space
was
and the lease. Wow.
moving into a seafood processing facility, so.
Wow.
Hey, Jerry. So,
Can it be like replaced in phases? I mean, does it have to be just a 10 million? I mean, there's several coolers. Can one be updated at 5?
well, right now, one of the condensers, is my understanding, doesn't work or doesn't work well, and so you need one.
Right, well, that's what
You know,
I'm
so-
saying, doesn't seem like you have to spend $10 million next year, but it's a
You're
lot of money. to
Right, so
spend
there's,
on
you
it.
know, there's negotiations to be had, and
Yeah.
we'll let them do that.
Yeah, well,
But there
Max is in
still
the best
needs,
position.
right, but there still needs to be a long-term vision, and if this is, you know, by deed restriction limited to seafood processing and or agriculture, you know, we need to figure out how to come up with $10 million and a plan for making this a state-of-the-art
thriving
seafood
seafood
processing
processing
facility, so.
Yeah,
Right.
and NAPS is on board to be that if the facility can support it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, so anyways, I mean, I think we're in a better position, or at least I feel better about it than I did a month or
Yeah.
two ago. But there's still, you know, nothing tangible or material.
And the concern would be NAPS leaves, Mass Development doesn't want to put any more money into it, it just gets left there. Is that the
Yeah, it
risk?
just becomes a vacant space with,
Right.
you know, very little curb appeal because it's
Exactly.
so outdated.
Right,
And
Yeah, okay.
no one's gonna put the resources into it without someone.
And it is designated for fishing, commercial fishing and
Correct.
agriculture. Yeah.
so part of the challenge is that. So for example, and this is not speaking out of turn, Gloucester Marine Genomics Institute is interested in expanding its facility. Or moving to a larger space, and conceivably, you know, I4C2 might be that space. But here, you know, I don't see how you could
Right,
commit, even if it's a marine biotechnology firm, into a seafood processing facility, right, you know?
Right.
You could try to spin wheels to figure out how to move it around it, but I mean, it really needs to be. Aquaculture would certainly be allowed, and I'm sure that you could take advantage as a DPA property of some level of supporting use. But it would really need to be tied to
Right.
seafood processing. So,
they're in a good spot right now, they have a company right there, so it's
Right.
just, you know,
right.
helping them negotiate that.
So, hey, Jerry, can you hear me?
I can.
So maybe we can talk later this week. I just talked a little bit about the MAPC kickoff meeting. At some point, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, you would have gotten a couple of pager about what that work effort looks like in terms of MAPC using the NRAIL, the Department of Energy tool, online tools to assess sort of decarbonization strategies, and then trying to put together a meeting. But I'd like to talk to you in more detail. There's a steering committee that's essentially comprised of the city of Manchester, town of Manchester, EDIC, and the city of Gloucester, Bailey representing the city of Gloucester. But I think your input both into the analysis and the methodology and and ultimately the development of a consortium is pretty important. So I'm sure you've got plenty of time, nothing.
Oh, oodles.
Energy efficiency program issue. No, anyways, but if you either later this week or next week, I would like to get you involved in the steering committee in a way that, you know, makes sense for your time and availability.
Yeah, well, for sure. I'm, I, I mean, the work I do actually is not that distant from renewables.
Right.
But what I'm missing, and I've only had a chance to look briefly at the document you mentioned and the map that you just sent today, or the website rather. But can you explain for me what the overall objective is, or
So,
where this is hoped to go?
well, I think the hope is, so part of it, just to speak very pragmatically, is that Manchester has $30,000 to do this work. So let's keep the ball moving and do this work. So the way I see it, whether it's right or wrong, is so EDIC and others are involved in looking at and thinking about long-term energy capacity quality issues from the distribution side and the transmission side. They have this money and this analytical tool that allows them to look at current sort of energy usage with a focus on renewables, and then develop strategies for decarbonization. So ideal, and we've talked about this in other ways, it's for Essex County, but they can do some stuff to try to tailor it to represent Greater Cape Ann. But I think it's one more data analysis in our toolkit that we've done. And it's another way, we looked at forecasting from an economic development perspective. This gives us some insight into, is National Grid forecasting for decarbonization effectively based on these tools? And then that analysis can does two things. One, because MAPC is on the advisory committee, the GMAC, it integrates us and or them with the GMAC a little bit. And then ideally, it gives us this mechanism to build a consortium with all the work we've done, but representing sort of Greater Cape Ann stakeholders to build this consortium and try to figure out what's the best way or a way to interact more directly with DPU and or ISO New England. And that's a stretch. I mean, I think that's a goal, but how to do that is, I certainly don't know. But hopefully this allows us to do more analysis and another reason to create a consortium that we've been talking about for a year and a half.
So I guess what I'm not clear about is what the analysis would be of. I mean, are we looking at behind the meter, or utility owned somewhere in the distribution system? We're talking about supplementing the transmission system, which is a whole nother animal.
Yeah.
Are we looking at
What I
in the abstract, or potential as a more practical matter? Are we looking at it as energy efficiency or capacity additions? I mean, it seems there's a lot of different possibilities there, and it just seems a little nebulous to me. And I'm trying to figure out if, in your mind at least, this represents something of a connection to the capacity issues that we've been talking about, because I don't see much of a connection, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives us another way of looking at the potential for renewables. And to some degree efficiency, but I think more on the renewable side. And then compare that with what National Grid says it needs to build out over the next 10 years or 20 years or whatever. And so I think it does give us some insight into capacity issues, and it gives us another way of trying to compare, and maybe it's apples and oranges, but compare what grid says it's gonna do in the next 10 years, or what it suggests it's going to do, versus what this tool would say, yeah, that's perfectly adequate, or no, you're 100 megawatts short, or, or geez, yeah, but you really need to focus on the distributed generation side and get these solar roofs up and going in order. So I think there will be, it's a little nebulous for me. I'm not sure how academic versus practical it will be, but I do think that there will be good information generated from this.
Well, one of the big obstacles, as I know, as we've heard locally, and is true all over the grid system at least, is the obstacles that the utilities raise over an interconnection. So it's one thing to look at the well-sited roofs, add up the potential, and say, "Hey, here's what we can do." It's something quite different to say, "Here's what the utility will connect." So is that part of the?
Well, I think that's why what I took away from this kickoff meeting with MAPC was that they do see the ability to do this analysis and look at it as a way then to inform the GMAC, the advisory committee, and to help them figure out what are their next steps in focusing on which policies or what DPU should be doing, as well as obviously Eversource and National Grid. So, I think we're both playing. I mean, I think you're hitting on some really, valid points about the specific goals. But I think that we're both sort of thinking, all right, this will be not the perfect analysis, but a reasonable analysis, and it gives Greater Cape Ann some a reason to interact with GMAC, and then hopefully inform some strategies for directly connecting with these key bodies that we currently don't know how to connect with.
Well,
So-
I mean, one potential path that something like this could support, I suppose, would be essentially a behind the meter analysis, rooftops and so on, essentially as energy efficiency. So it's demand reduction. That's very threatening to the utility, of course. And that, however, that could support an argument that here's what we're going to shoot for. Here's what we think we can do. That frees up a certain amount of capacity for industrial expansion, let's say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that part of the strategy?
I believe so, but I couldn't say 100% certain.
Good to get a handle with, and I think involving the other folks on this steering committee need to come to a decision about that. It's very different if you're planning or hoping to plan something with the utility, and we've all seen where that goes, versus planning something basically on environmental grounds that has an impact to move the utility in a direction we want them to move in terms of providing capacity.
Yeah.
So there's big strategic difference between those two paths, and I think that needs to be set out early on.
All right. Great point. There's another document. I mean, the methodology is going to hopefully come to us in the next week or so from MAPC. And so I think that looking at that and ideally having a follow-up conversation with you participating once they lay out their methodology for the analysis, that would be the perfect time to really strengthen this conversation and identify exactly what the strategic path is that we want them to take.
So so the structure of this is the MAPC is going to do the analysis. I don't know how they're gonna do it with that NREL stuff that's on a county basis, but NREL is gonna do the analysis and Gloucester and Manchester or something of like a board of directors to direct them or what?
Correct.
And an MAPC is probably gonna have their own ideas.
Yeah, but I mean, they certainly, you know, we're the customer here. I mean, I'm sure, as I said, they have probably some of their own ideas and ways in which they'd like to do things that could be relevant to other communities or influencing the advisory committee, but, you know, first and foremost, we're the ones with the money and the contract, so, you know, we get to say what we want for the product.
So we are the grantee, is that it?
From the city, town of Manchester, yes.
Out of Manchester's grantee, and they have hired MAPC essentially?
They are, yes.
All right, well, that's helpful. I mean, I'm asking these questions in part because in the last go round at the GMAC, I thought MAPC was extraordinarily unhelpful. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think these are online tools. And that's what there's a slide that he showed the other day that gives him some information about other tools available to them to essentially tailor. I mean, again, there's to tailor the data as best as can be tailored to Greater Cape Ann. So how they'll be looking at it. And again, this will be sort of spelled out in the methodology, both not just sort of, okay, here's the data for Essex County, but here's how we're going to try to tailor that data to Greater Cape Ann. And so that's a big question. And the second big question is the one you raised, which is, you know, what is our goal as it relates to, and as you say, if we could better understand demand reduction based on the use of these tools, that would be helpful.
When you say data available to them, you mean to MAPC or to whom?
To MAPC, yeah.
But I don't think there's any great secrets here. But if they've got other data, we should know what it is or what its source is.
Well, that's what I mean. There was a slide that was presented that showed what, and I'm assuming, but I will ask that that's spelled out in the methodology.
Or is that, is there something beyond a 2-pager that you can send to me?
The only other thing I have is there was notes from the meeting the other day. I don't know how helpful those will be, and there was a slide presentation, but it was a very sort of, it's very process oriented slides. It wasn't necessarily, I don't think you're going to get the answers you seek from the slide, but I'll send both of those to you.
Okay, thanks. Well, okay. I mean, we should probably, before we engage with MAPC, we should probably figure out where we want to go with this. I mean, tactically, I haven't thought this through totally yet, but tactically, I could see a great advantage to treating this as a harmless sort of, from National Grid's point of view, exercise in greenhouse gas reduction for Cape Ann, and then develop or not, depending on what the facts turn out to be, a tool that we can later use in our capacity conversations. So I think we need to be clear amongst ourselves what our goal is, but we don't necessarily need to be clear to some of the onlookers like National Grid where we're going.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this has been helpful for me, for you pressing a little bit on greater specificity. So I'll share with you what I've got, and then I think we wait I mean, you and I can have another conversation, but I think we wait to see what the methodology is that the MAPC gives us. And then I suspect, we'll want to get back on the phone with them. I mean, you and I can talk first and then, along with Bailey, and then make sure we know what our goals are, and then getting back in touch with, MAPC to, clarify anything.
Yeah, I think we probably should have a conversation with who's ever representing Manchester before that also.
Yep.
So, and who will that be, do you know?
Well, Greg Federspiel is the town administrator and sort of he's been I think the champion behind a lot of the energy work that's been done in Manchester, but he is leaving. There are finalists for his position that will probably be determined in the next month or so. So he'll be leaving at some point this summer. So I think he's around the data analysis, but not necessarily, sort of the phase 2.
Yeah. Okay, well, whoever that turns out to be, obviously be important for us to coordinate with early on.
Yep. Okay. All right, thank you. So under new business, it's about 5:30 here. CADA last mile, so Applied Materials reached out to us to express frustration that they'd heard from some of their employees about the on-demand CADA service, and somehow or other over the last year or two, it was sort of no longer adequately aligned with the trains arriving in the morning or trains leaving in the afternoon. So Mike Delasio and I have spoken with Felicia, and she's come back with sort of a proposal, which is a bit of a Band-Aid proposal, but and then we have a meeting with Applied this Friday. So the hope is that, so I don't know whether, MBTA changes train schedules or how this all happened, but, the on-demand service has been very successful. But it's sort of moved away, I think, from being designed for the last mile or for getting employees to work. And it's more a concierge bus service, which, if that's what the market needs and how to generate money, then that's great. So, and they have, so the plan would be, ideally, is that they would put an additional van or bus in place at the early morning, the 2 morning trains. I think one is around 7:30 and one 8:30 roughly. And then bring people up to Blackburn. And then they'd bring those buses would be taken out of service. And then put back in service at 4:30 for the 2 most likely trains that folks would use. Applied Materials did a survey, and about 26 people, I think, responded that they would like to use it if it worked, and if it was more convenient. The other thing that was that Applied Materials, which was a corporate sponsor at the very beginning, which is now like 4 years ago, but people aren't using the code, they're just calling the on-demand service. So the idea, I think what we're going to propose is
You just cut out. I don't know what happened. Patty, can you hear anything?
No, I can just hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes me feel a little better. Tom, can you hear us? We can't hear you. No, he raised his hand.
Will that work?
But we're not hearing anything.
Yeah, I think Lee is trying to send you.
Now we hear you.
Oh,
Yeah,
What? No. Oh, that's,
You're cutting in and out, but that's progress.
The connection.
okay, well, I'll try to be particularly succinct. Um,
Now we can hear, I can hear you well. Pat, are you too?
correct.
Good.
So we have a call this Friday with Applied Materials where Kata, Felicia will propose this sort of interim measure. We've wanted to make sure that we're responsive to our largest employer in town and as well as make sure that this on-demand service is aligned with its original mission. So the challenge that I was starting to say is that it's constrained by the number of drivers that she has. So she can put a new bus in, but if somebody calls out sick that day as a driver, you're back to, you're gonna have to call and you're gonna have to wait. Longer term, she has some drivers in CDL training. And so she's hopeful that if this can work out well, that she will have more drivers in the future. Although I don't know what their financial model looks like going forward. I'm sure that they are going to be hit by some financial challenges. So anyways, just wanted to bring you up to speed with that, and then I'll report back at the next meeting how it's going. But the communications have been very good between us and Applied Materials, and Felicia's great. I mean, they had hit a stone wall as it addressed as it relates to solving this problem, and Felicia's stepped up to the plate and taken it seriously and come up with at least a short-term solution.
Yeah, I mean, one thing with going back to that sponsorship model, help,
Right.
I know there's one kid that uses it that works for me, and he says it takes forever to get out to Magnolia, but he said it looks like they expanded the footprint. Because when we originally talked about this, it was very much a last mile thing,
Right.
and has it turned into that? Like, what's their data on, has it turned into just a cheap Uber ride?
Yeah, I don't know, right? It was
so-
limited
Right.
right at the beginning. I'm not
So
sure.
we should figure out if it needs to kind of be refocused. We don't want to limit their footprint.
Right.
Unless it's really taken away from service,
Right.
at the important times. So I think they have all that data, like.
Well, it sounds like there may be sort of two competing models, both of which it would be good to serve.
Oh, definitely, 100%. And I think they have a lot of data on how, like, who's going where with trips, like, where do trips start at the train station and go to the industrial park? So they have a lot of that data. It's just us figuring out, with them or, pushing them to focus on business travel, the last mile stuff. Or do we get sponsorship to add or dedicate a bus to that at those certain peak hours? And see what they need, if they need something from us or the businesses. Because we did get some good sponsorship, and I think people would be.
So maybe, and it's not clear to me that Felicia is sort of so directly involved in the program, right? So she
Right.
spoke to us in the past and had great data and stuff like that. I think she's helping solve a problem here, but not, so I don't know I'm pretty sure it's not her, but whether
Right.
there's somebody that is directly accountable or managing it. But maybe we could ask her or whoever to come back and speak to us and share the data once again.
Okay.
Which brings me to the second question, which is request for economic development speakers at EDIC meetings. Are there folks that, again, given sort of, we feel like, I think we're doing a reasonable job, but we're a little bit of a island to ourselves in economic development. I was at a presentation, Katie Call at the UMass Gloucester Marine Station has been working with NOAA economists who have been looking at sort of blue economy, but marine technology companies in and around the North Shore, and what that impact is economically, and what would, and what might be at risk with climate resiliency or other issues. But it made me aware that, geez, this would be great for them to come here and give us a half-an-hour presentation on, here's what we've found as it relates to economic development risks and opportunities, you know, in this area, and wanted to throw it out to others. Is there other organizations or people that you think I would love to hear a presentation on X?
Yeah.
The two women from GMGI that were at the meeting.
Yeah.
Were very interested in somehow making a connection to the schools and GMGI. It seemed be really interesting to get more time with them to just hear what are they envisioning and how could we have a concrete involvement in that. You know? So if that was what I was really hoping to follow up on after that.
One of them, the executive director, Chris Bolzan, has left.
Okay.
Actually, she's gonna be, she's awesome. I think she's vice chancellor of experiential education at Northeastern.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I was
But that-
thinking a lot of those companies, it would be great to hear more about what they're trying to accomplish in Gloucester, and, you know, on the flip side, who has space, who has, you know, I mean, that's very hands-on, but to me, the EDIC could do more, I think, just being in the middle of those two things, if we knew more about what folks are
Well, and
doing.
also it raises an interesting question for me, is that I went to a outreach, Mayor Verga has been doing outreach sessions, and I asked him a question about economic development. And the focus was, which was sort of similar, consistent with what you're describing in that conversation we had at Blackburn about skill training of high school kids. And that's certainly a really important component of that. I mean, but the other half of that, which is where we're more likely to work, which is there a company here in Gloucester that's going to employ this young person who's now skilled in life sciences or skilled in lean manufacturing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that's certainly a great area of focus and interest of the Verga administration.
Yeah, and it seemed important to those companies, and do they want to stay in Gloucester? Can we get enough people? You know, kids who want to stay in town, or,
Right.
you know, people moving here to do those kinds of jobs. It's one end of it, but certainly I'd love to learn more about that, even if it was a couple of companies in just one meeting.
Right, I mean, I'm
You know,
sure
so
if Patty, are you a member of the chamber?
Yes,
So do they still do, they used to do an annual roundtable, but it was a good size of all the various educational institutions. So high schools, Endicott, Jordan, UMass, whatever, talking about education and skills and stuff like that. Or do you know if they still do that, or if they have a committee focused?
Tom, what's the focus of your question? Do you mean, the chamber does present, for instance, to different groups at the high school?
So
I don't really know what they used to do. I mean,
used
I've
to
been a
do
member
this,
for
but they
15,
wouldn't-
20 years.
yeah, so it was all about workforce development and what Salem State was doing, or what the Voc Tech was doing, or what Gloucester High was doing to prepare students for the job market. And so I was just wondering if the chamber is still actively involved in that.
I'll be
I
happy to
wonder-
look into it, Tom.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
It doesn't
Related-
ring a bell off the top of my head.
Okay.
A related question would be, how does the circus in Washington affect the resources that are available for that sort of thing? I mean,
Yeah.
they're trying to eliminate the Department of Education, for example. So and I presume much of the funding, if not all of the funding that went with it. So whatever was true a year ago in terms of workforce development in terms of at least federal resources, it's probably not there today. And it'd be awfully useful to know if that's our objective, what's left, what's the alternative. I'm sure there's much more pressure on state and resources, and then down to the individual entity level like Salem State.
Right. I think that's a great suggestion to explore sort of workforce development, and maybe it's a panel discussion. And maybe it's at our work meeting, or maybe we can put together something a little broader than that. Any other recommendations for speakers or topics or groups that you think? I think this is this is within our capabilities.
Yeah, yeah.
To focus on that
Yeah,
one.
the blue economy one that you mentioned, the NOAA
Yeah.
economist would be great. I mean, it's still a matter of space and companies and people to work in them, right? I mean, is there a conversation the EDIC should be involved in around housing and the availability of workforce housing, or do we just stay off it? And it's such a,
I was trying to find places for J1s to live, and it's like nearly
Right.
impossible. And then, we found one rental for $1,600 a month, but it's a 12-month rental, and it's just, it's something that we won't be able to solve. And I don't know how it gets solved.
I think we, as citizens of Gloucester, do have some input in that. I think, and I don't mean to be political, and I should have asked Tom if I could speak about this before, but
Oh, go ahead.
I truly feel, from my professional and personal experience, there have been times when I've owned 9 residential units at one time, that by voting for, on April 24th, by voting for the 3A overlay, that is a very simple first step for workforce housing in our community. I'm not talking about little a affordable, big A affordable. I'm just talking about the experience I have professionally and personally, is that the most economical sources of housing in our community is within our community and not in places such as the Halyard. And if that avenue can be helped, that definitely is workforce housing.
totally agree.
Yep.
So that's a two-part question. I mean, do you feel, would the board like us to take a position in the sense of, I guess, a letter to the editor for the Gloucester Times? And then second question is, of course, how many people read the Gloucester Times? You can feel good about writing it and expressing yourself, but
Tom, I actually think they have a large online audience. Their paper audience is very small and dwindling, but I think they have a substantial online audience.
So would you, what does the board feel? Agree?
I would.
I'm in favor of it, yeah. Jerry, Patty?
Specifically, are we talking about here? What would this op-ed say?
Writing a letter of support for a yes on 3A.
Yes on 3A, but from the angle that Patty just, articulated very well about this is the best opportunity for affordable workforce housing is within the sort of existing housing.
Yep.
Well, I mostly agree with that, but my big concern is if you just open that up, how do we assure that that will be affordable? I mean, the market rents are the market rents, and they're not affordable. So, how, by and large,
I would suggest that we do not use the word affordable because that opens up at least two other discussions. I would suggest using the word workforce as one starting point.
well, I don't care too much what we call it, but my concern would be something that the workforce can afford, however you want to put that. And my concern is that the market, with a few extra, some say it won't be many, with a few extra housing units, will not develop to the point where there will be units that the workforce can afford. So how do we assure otherwise?
We are at the point in our community and in the eastern part of our state that we need to take any step towards workforce housing that we can manage. And after many, many years of studying this problem and not having any success, this has been deemed the least, I don't know, I want to say offensive or most successful way to start down that direction. And it probably came not so much from the housing styles we're talking about here in Gloucester. We talk about multifamilies a lot, but a lot of the background came from the work that they did in California, making ADUs cost effective for people to develop. They were the first state, I believe, in doing ADUs and doing overlays and things like that in their zoning.
Yeah, I have some familiarity with the ADUs in California and elsewhere. But I don't understand that the overlay that's proposed here is for ADUs, but even if it is, if these are to be put on the market, I don't understand what contribution that makes, especially if it's at a small scale, to creating housing that will be suitable, if you prefer that word, to affordable for.
Jerry, we are not talking about ADUs. I'm talking about some of the historical research that has put us in the situation we are in, which is the 3A situation here. There will never be any guarantees about what happens with your housing. I'm talking from on the ground experience as a realtor, a rental realtor, and a property, a multi-property owner, that most people who are looking for a rental property are workforce people.
Yeah,
blue collar and it's white collar.
So 3A isn't the only stuff.
I
It
don't
is,
understand the economic.
that's, I think, where we're getting a little tangled up, is it's not gonna solve affordable housing, but it is a
No,
step.
no.
So
Yeah.
it's really bad. I mean, to me, it's not gonna be good for housing in Gloucester to get a no on 3A on April 24th.
right.
So
No, and the crisis is at the point where we have to start with little steps. It's a severe crisis, and the outlook just isn't good.
Well,
Yeah.
I totally agree, but I guess my philosophy is different. I think if you have a big problem, you need a big solution.
In a perfect world,
Right, I think, Jerry, it's hard in Gloucester, one, for the lack of vast swaths of land. And you're gonna impose some type of building restrictions on an already strained building environment. You know, to force that, so then our only step would be for the city to step in and do something, and you know, there's a couple instances where they stepped in and tried to develop things, and there was a lot of not in my backyard, and even the affordable housing people were like, well, you can't put the housing that close to the highway, why should they live so close to the highway? It's like, well, there's 50 other families right here in the same neighborhood, why, you're making it seem like we're sequestering them here, but there's 8 lots that the city could develop, and they got shut down. So it's
You're really better off staying away from the word affordable and using workforce.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's anybody who owns a business or works in a business in this city who has a plethora of employees to choose from. And
Yeah.
housing is the main
housing problem.
Sure,
problem.
that's true, but I think changing the nomenclature does not solve the problem that the housing that's created by something small, if it's small like this, is going to create housing for people in the workforce, other than folks who want to live near the train in order to get to a well-paying job in Boston. But that's not the kind of workforce that we're thinking of. We're talking about people who want to work locally, right?
Well, I think one of the things, and not to sound political and say I agree with you both, but I do think that this is a first step, and that's all it is. It's not going to afford, but I do think a no vote sends a really overwhelming message to the business community, or, you know, that housing, that Gloucester is not willing to recognize that we need to produce more housing to address economic development and workforce needs. So that the message of a no vote is a really
Right.
significant message,
And
even
the
if.
economic impact of a no vote
Right.
is
Oh,
bad.
Yeah,
So,
we
I mean,
lose the
to
So-
me, I would hope we could put our support behind it, and I think it's a good idea.
So if we wanted to do this, there's either two things. So either, I would suggest Patty, because you've been so articulate, if you wanted to draft a brief letter to the editor, with the focus on workforce housing and as a, in coming from or as a representative of the EDIC. If we want to present it as the EDIC, then we should get together next week. We need to sort of be able to reach a consensus vote as a EDIC. Or if we don't think that's possible, it doesn't need to be consensus, but it needs to be, you know, a majority vote. Or you should just write it, and it's not coming from the EDIC, but it's referencing the same issues, and that you've seen this as a member of the EDIC, you know, walk that fine line. But I mean, I'm happy to make it happen if we want to present it as from the EDIC. I'm just saying we would need to come together next week remotely, or we host a meeting and make a decision on that.
Yep.
Your second
Tom, if you want me to
question-
draft a letter, I'm more than happy to do it, but I,
EDIC as an entity.
I'm sorry, say that again, Jerry?
I'm fine if the individual members of the EDIC, some of us, want to sign such a letter to the editor, but I do not think it should come from the entity of the EDIC.
Okay.
So are you against the 3A thing?
I told you, I don't see the economics. I see the dangers of developers swooping in, and I see nothing preventing it. And I don't see anything in the proposal that would actually create what we've just been talking about, which is housing for a local workforce. I think it's a very ill-advised, it's a state-imposed idea, which I think made no sense to me economically in the first place, and I think it makes even less sense for Gloucester.
Okay, I mean, we can still, I mean, your opinion has been strongly stated. We can, as an EDIC, you know, vote, and if the majority rules, I'll check it, but I don't think it needs to be a consensus vote to come from the EDIC. But,
Okay.
I would have to file a dissent then.
okay,
It's fine. How do we,
I'm I'm not anxious to do that, but if you force me into it, that's what I'll do.
So, I mean, Patty, do you feel, I mean, so the other is to walk this fine line between writing a letter to the editor. I think you can mention that you're a member of the EDIC, but the letter is coming from Patty Nags and talking about workforce. What do you think about the pros and cons of?
I think it has a lot, I think it has a lot more strength coming from the EDIC. I too walk the fine line of people perceiving my interest or support of it in being self-serving. I can tell you, based on 25 years selling in Gloucester, I have never, nor does anyone in my office come across developers looking for bulk purchases. Perhaps if you talk to a commercial company, you would, but it is not a common occurrence in the everyday 25 years that I've been doing listings and sales in Cape Ann.
I would have no objection to individual members of the EDIC signing on to such a letter if that's what individual members want to do. But if it's to come from the EDIC, then I
So
would.
it's this fine line, so let's say Patty writes it, but it's signed by, it's not coming from the EDIC, but it might be signed by Tom Balfe, Gretel Seeley, Taylor Hedges. You're
I'd
fine with
sign it. Yeah, I mean, I would sign it as part of a committee.
If it comes from the EDIC, then I would feel obliged to state my opinion as well. I'm not anxious to get into this debate, but I will jump in
Yeah.
if it comes to that.
Patty, I guess just to like, if I could ask, why don't you draft something? And then, and send it to me. And, we'll figure out the best way to go forward. I don't want to create friction. But I do think I agree this is an important vote, and if we could sway a couple people or put together a compelling argument, I'd certainly be supportive of doing that. So, if you can draft something, and send it to me, that would be awesome. And then we'll be in touch with everybody.
Sure.
Last two quick items. There is a public meeting on the municipal harbor plan, April 15th at 6 p.m. If anybody is interested in listening in to that presentation as it relates to our beloved harbor.
Is that in person or is that?
It's a remote meeting.
Okay.
I'll send out I've got the link somewhere.
Yeah, send it up. I'd be interested to watch that. 15?
Yeah.
Perfect. Next Tuesday. Place of our meeting.
And then the Ports Compact Initiative, I've been participating, I think I mentioned it before. And I'm keeping our harbor master in the loop on this. Meetings between New Bedford, Boston, Massport, Salem. About the need for a statewide policy on port development and the ports of the Commonwealth. And I think the general direction is trying to get something, I'm not sure I fully support this, but trying to basically have a legislator file and obviously hopefully pass the need for a study that would look at the major commercial ports in the Commonwealth with allocated funds. And that then would make recommendations on, for example, who should be in charge of it. Is it Massport? Is it MWRA? Is it the Economic Development Department? And how do we address climate resiliency and everything else? As part of this, a 1994 report, the Governor's Commission on Commonwealth Port Development, was discovered. And that did lead to the creation of the Seaport Economic Council. This was under the Weld administration. And it's a very good, it's one of those disturbing reports where, you know, it's 30 years ago and you're like, they're talking about Gloucester in the same way that we could talk about it today, ranging from similar issues to the challenge in Gloucester of herding cats to you name it. It's so anyways, and there was supposed to be, this report was also supposed to have led to an RFP that was developed, but then to develop a strategic plan, but that was never done. So anyways, there's some activity on that. And I certainly think it would be a great idea for the state to really figure out, have a statewide plan and then invest in our harbors or our ports appropriately. All right, finances, anything you want to report on?
I'm gonna skip over that. We have the audit results in and I'll send those around. I'm gonna skip over that and give you the status of the beaver seat. So there shouldn't be any change in status, but they came down to do their annual or periodic investigation or like maintenance and look at it. And someone has pulled the downstream fence away, so the beavers could now clog up the pipe that goes under the road.
So somebody actually,
Came and removed that pipe, allowing the beavers to now cut wood and stuff it up into the culvert pipe. So now it's dammed, that's flooding on the far side of the road, on the upstream side of the road. And I pulled the manhole cover with him, he went down there, he clarified it, and he's like, if I start taking sticks away, once it lets go, I'll pretty much drown. So I'm gonna call the DPW, he's got a report he's writing and some
So
pictures.
somebody vandalized it?
He
Or-
said maybe someone thought that maybe there was something stuck and they let it go and they didn't put it's
Right.
designed to be removed, so.
Or are the beavers getting
Or,
smarter?
well, yeah, well, I hope not. There are people that like go and feed the beavers and like do stuff, so I'm
Right.
wondering if they're like, oh, this will be fun, like, let's let them go back and forth between, so they don't have to go over the road, like, someone doesn't really understand the
Right.
concept that what we're trying to do is maintain an environment where the beavers can stay, because
Right,
once
and not get-
they can't stay, they can't stay
Right,
alive.
right.
So, as I said, there's no relocating them. I know what that means. So I am gonna work with the DPW to get that, hopefully. But right now, it's not flowing.
so I know that there is, when we did this before, trying to do it as simply as possible, there, you can get an emergency order to fix stuff
To get
or do.
one, yeah, it's really just getting someone in the culvert pipe to unclog it, and he said it really has to be a flush truck. So like they'll start blasting water up there, and then
Right.
it'll release the silty mess, and then once water starts flowing, everything should start
Right.
flowing out. But if we have a lot of rain this spring, which we're hoping for, it should be done.
I'd like to take this occasion to thank Taylor Hedges one more time for all he does for the E EDIC.
I said, it's my favorite part of the meeting.
I knew that'd be way better than the status of the accounts.
The CD rates don't compare to the escapades.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Taylor, second,
Second,
Gretel, all in favor? Aye, all right, we will be in touch over the next by the end of the week or soon and figure out exactly what we're gonna do here.
All right.
All right, thanks,
Bye, guys. Good
everybody.
to see you guys.
bye guys.